Okay, let's unpack this. The Middle East, it's always under the geopolitical microscope, right?
Right.
But what we've just seen, it feels like a seismic shift.
It really does. For years, it's been this dance of proxy fights, covert stuff between Israel and Iran. Very dangerous, but indirect.
Exactly. But that whole dynamic seems shattered now. We're talking direct, open confrontation, an exchange of actual blows. It's perilous.
Undeniably. And the alarm bells are ringing globally.
So our mission today is to try and cut through all the noise, break down exactly what happened step by step.
Right. And look at the why behind it, the strategic thinking on both sides.
And the immediate impact, too, the devastation, plus how other countries, the U.S. especially, are reacting.
It's a complex web.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to do this, we've pulled together a whole range of sources. We've got the big global news outlets, The Guardian, India Today, New York Times, AP News for the facts on the ground.
Essential groundwork.
Then we've layered in analysis from think tanks like the International Crisis Group, Al Jazeera Center for Studies, people trying to make sense of this strategy.
Giving us that crucial context, yeah.
And interestingly, we've even looked at some viral social media reports like from TikTok just to get that raw ground level feel.
Which can be revealing, even if you have to be cautious.
Absolutely. So this isn't just reading headlines. It's about connecting the dots, understanding the currents underneath, and giving you, our listener, a really informed, nuanced take on this whole crisis as it unfolds.
And what's truly fascinating here, beyond just the sheer military intensity, is how this direct exchange marks such a huge shift. It's not just another flare-up.
Yeah.
It's actively pushing the whole region closer to what some experts are genuinely calling a geopolitical storm, or even, starkly, the brink of war.
That's a heavy phrase.
It is. So for you listening, the goal isn't just to sort of absorb a flood of news. We want you to get a comprehensive, deep understanding of this incredibly complex situation, but without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Right. We'll get into the why, the strategic reasons, and the how, the specifics of what actually happened.
And crucially, what it all might actually mean. For the Middle East, yes, but also for global stability, for, your understanding of how these things impact everyone.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. This whole dramatic escalation, this terrifying shift, it kicked off with a huge move by Israel.
Operation Rising Lion.
Exactly. Friday morning, June 13th, 2025, just after 3:30 a.m. apparently, shattering the quiet, Israel launches this massive, coordinated offensive.
The scale was
Something else. Astounding, right? Over 200 Israeli fighter jets. That's what, 60% of their entire Air Force? Out of about 330 planes.
a huge commitment of resources.
And they flew 5 waves of airstrikes, dropped more than 330 precision-guided bombs, just boom, 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 deep inside Iran.
This wasn't just a random retaliation.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Sources called it smooth coordination between the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, and Mossad, their intelligence agency.
That suggests deep planning intelligence.
Yeah, Fabian Heinz, an expert at ISIS, even called it the pinnacle of modern warfare. High praise, if you can call it that in this context.
It implies a very high level of sophistication, cyber, satellite intel, precision bombing, all working together to bypass defenses that were thought to be pretty strong.
So what were they hitting?
Well, the targeting was extremely deliberate. They went straight for what Israel sees as the core of Iran's power. First, the nuclear program's crown jewels.
Like Natanz.
Exactly. The above-ground uranium enrichment hall there, its power plant destroyed in that first wave, and the IAEA assessment. It suggested the power cut alone likely wrecked loads of those delicate centrifuges underground.
Wow, because they're so sensitive.
Incredibly sensitive, spinning at high speeds. A sudden power loss or surge can just cause them to crash, seize up, years of work potentially ruined.
And it wasn't just Natanz.
No. The complex outside Isfahan got hit hard too. Satellite pictures quickly showed sites pockmarked with holes. That includes the uranium conversion plant, the fuel facility, vital steps.
So crippling the fuel cycle itself.
That seems to be the aim. They also hit the Iraq heavy water reactor potential plutonium route and Fordo, the one built deep inside a mountain.
Right, the really hardened one.
Yeah, and reports indicate that doing significant damage to Fordo actually needed some direct U.S. help, which tells you how tough that target is and maybe hints at deeper cooperation than is always admitted.
Interesting point. Okay, so nuclear sites were primary. What else?
Beyond nuclear, a broad sweep of military and strategic assets. Over 100 targets hit. Key military bases in Tehran, Isfahan. Big ballistic missile depots.
Taking out their ability to strike back.
Partially, yes. And the
Yeah.
human cost on the military side was immediate. significant losses. Notably, the IRGC's intelligence chief, Brigadier General Mohammad Kazemi, and his deputy, General Hassan Mahakik, killed.
That's high-level decapitation.
Very high level. Other senior generals, too. A major blow to command and control. And chillingly, reports also suggested 9 top nuclear scientists were killed.
9. That's irreplaceable expertise gone, potentially setting back their program for years.
Exactly. But Israel didn't stop at military or nuclear targets. They deliberately went after what they called Ayatollah regime targets.
Yeah.
Pillars of the economy, symbols of power, a gas refinery on the coast, a big oil storage facility near Tehran, the Sharon oil depot north of the city, a fuel tank south, all set ablaze. Huge fires.
Hitting their energy sector hard.
And even government buildings in Tehran, the foreign ministry. It was a clear message. This isn't just about weapons, it's about applying pressure across the entire Iranian state.
A very forceful message indeed.
Now, if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, Israel's motivation, it's deeply rooted in their active defense doctrine.
Explain that a bit.
Well, from Israel's viewpoint, Iran isn't just a rival, it's an existential threat, a state committed to its destruction. So active defense, as Ali Vaiz from the Crisis Group put it, this operation was the culmination of that. It means taking preemptive action when you perceive a major threat, even without, absolute proof of an attack right now.
So acting first based on perceived danger.
Essentially, yes. The stated goal was clear. Destroy Iran's nuclear and missile programs, the things they see as the biggest threats.
And the political dimension. Netanyahu.
Right. Netanyahu made it very clear. While regime change wasn't a formal war aim, he said it was the desired outcome. He even called on Iranians to rise up against their leaders.
Wow, that's direct.
Extremely direct. And Defense Minister Katz doubled down, saying Khamenei cannot continue to exist, and later suggesting the military knows this man absolutely should not continue to exist to achieve their goals.
That's incredibly strong language.
It really is. Moving way beyond veiled threats. Which is why Dan Saba, another expert, called the whole thing a risky gamble with unpredictable consequences.
Because it could backfire.
Hugely. Yes, it might shore up Netanyahu at home, look decisive. But if it escalates out of control, draws in others, the risks are immense.
And the immediate impact inside Iran. You mentioned the military losses, but the civilian side.
Regrettably, devastating. That's the harrowing part that gets lost in strategy talk. Despite Iran's supposedly formidable air defenses, they apparently crumbled pretty fast when the bombs started falling after 3:30 a.m. that Friday.
And the numbers.
Iranian health officials reported at least 224 people killed, over 1,200 injured just in the initial aftermath. And the really gut-wrenching figure, 90% of those killed by Sunday were civilians.
90%.
State TV even aired these harrowing scenes, they said, of bloodied children being pulled from rubble in residential areas of Tehran. A rare, stark glimpse of the reality. Dozens of civilians dead just in Tehran.
Just awful. And beyond the casualties.
The broader impact, profound. Roads jammed leaving Tehran, families trying desperately to flee using their tiny 25-liter fuel ration. It paints a picture of widespread fear.
Panicked, really.
Manic, yes. And the main road to Qom, the holy city, was reportedly blocked by bombing, trapping people. Then the nationwide internet blackout for days.
Cutting them off completely.
Exactly. Leaving the public in the dark, controlling the narrative, making it impossible to get outside news or for us to get reliable info out. And maybe the most telling sign, Ayatollah Khamenei himself reportedly sheltering in a bunker.
In a bunker.
And chillingly, naming potential successors for himself and top commanders, just in case they were killed. That speaks volumes about the perceived threat. All this early success led Israel to claim near total freedom in Iranian airspace. A decisive initial blow, it seemed.
So Israel struck hard, achieved initial dominance. But Iran wasn't just going to take it.
Absolutely not. Those attacks couldn't go unanswered. Iran launched its own large-scale retaliation, Operation True Promise III, the very same day, June 13th.
And this wasn't just symbolic either.
Far from it. A furious direct counterattack. Initial reports said about 150 ballistic missiles, over 100 drones in the first wave.
That's a significant barrage.
And Israeli army estimates later suggested Iran fired over 450 missiles and, listen to this, 1,000 drones towards Israel since it all started. Mostly from Iran, but some from proxies in Iraq too.
1,000 drones, showcasing their reach, their network.
Precisely. A multi-axis attack strategy.
And these missiles and drones, did they get through Israel's defenses? Because Israel has Iron Dome, Arrow.
They did, despite that very sophisticated, multi-layered system Iron Dome for short range. Arrow 3, Patriot, AD for longer-range threats, a significant number got through. Tel Aviv itself was hit.
The heart of Israel?
Yes, widespread panic. Reports of massive destruction in Beit Yam, just south of Tel Aviv. Sirens constantly wailing across central Israel. Millions told to shelter.
And civilian infrastructure.
Worryingly, yes. Soroka Hospital in Beersheba, a major hospital in the south, took a direct hit from an Iranian missile. Extensive damage.
Hitting a hospital. That's crossing a line.
It's certainly seen that way internationally, and residential suburbs were hit too. Buildings struck, fires, transforming neighborhoods into disaster zones. Even a single drone hit a building up north, causing damage, though thankfully no injuries in that case.
So the directness, targeting civilian areas, that marked an escalation from Iran too.
It did. So what does this tell us about effectiveness? Even with Israel's top-tier defenses, enough Iranian projectiles breached the shield to cause real casualties and damage.
How many got through?
Reports suggested out of maybe 270-plus missiles fired from Iran, 22 managed to penetrate the defenses.
22 doesn't sound like a lot, but...
But those 22 killed 14 people and injured a staggering 390 across Israel. It shows that even the best defenses can be overwhelmed by a massive, determined attack.
And specific incidents.
One truly horrific case in Bat Yam, south of Tel Aviv. An Iranian missile hit a high-rise apartment building, killed at least 6 people, including a 10-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl.
Oh, God. Just devastating.
Right into people's homes. Another 180 wounded in just that one strike. 7 people were missing afterwards, likely in the rubble. Overall, Tel Aviv saw maybe 22 to 41 injuries, at least 2 critical.
So similar scenes of horror on both sides.
Exactly. Residents dazed and dust-covered, picking through rubble, people spending nights in public shelters, and those heartbreaking images of kids playing in bomb shelters, adapting to this awful new reality.
Grim. Okay, so Iran's motivation for this retaliation, it seems straightforward revenge, but strategically.
Well, yes, it was explicitly retaliation for Rising Lion. Tehran vowed to open the gates of hell. But strategically, Iran sees its missile program and its regional influence through proxies as the absolute core pillars of its strategy of deterrence.
Things they won't negotiate on.
Extremely unlikely. Sources say even a more moderate reformist government would find it almost impossible to concede on those points. They're fundamental to their sense of security and power.
And the nuclear program fits into this deterrence idea.
It does. Though it's complex, Iran insists it's peaceful. But in fact, they're the only non-nuclear weapon state enriching uranium up to 60%. That's very close to weapons grade.
Giving them breakout capability.
Exactly. They could theoretically make material for a bomb relatively quickly if they decided to. And remember, their intelligence minister, Alavi, warned they might be forced to build a weapon if sanctions weren't lifted.
The cornered cat analogy.
Precisely. If you corner a cat, it might behave differently. It implies a defensive motivation, a hedge against threat and economic strangulation rather than an outright offensive plan. At least that's the framing.
And they showed resilience too, right? Appointing new commanders quickly after the losses.
Yes, replacing the chief of staff, the Revolutionary Guard Ground Forces commander, almost immediately. Major General Mousavi, Brigadier General Karami. It signaled, we're still functioning, we're still in control, despite taking heavy blows. An effort to project stability.
So this intensity, this directness, it really does feel like a major shift. No more hiding behind proxies, it's state on state.
Definitely. And Israel is explicitly preparing for a prolonged campaign. That's the language the IDF spokesperson Brig General Dufresne used. Chief of Staff Zamir told the army to get ready for it.
What does prolonged campaign even mean in this context? Weeks, months, sustained strikes.
It's unclear, but it suggests readiness for extended high-intensity operations, which carries huge costs, economic, social, needing reserves.
And Israel's claiming significant success already, destroying missile launchers.
They made bold claims, yeah. Destroying 2/3 of Iran's ballistic missile launchers out of maybe 400 at the start. Over 50% of all launchers. Estimating Iran still has over 100 active.
The goal being?
Explicitly making it harder for them to fire toward Israel. Now, how reliable are those numbers? Hard to say. And does it eliminate the threat long-term? Probably not entirely. Iran has strategic depth.
So degrading, not eliminating?
Likely. And looking ahead, Israel's doubling down on defense tech. Laser systems, the Arrow 4 for hypersonic missiles like Iran's Fata 1.
The ones that are really hard to intercept.
Exactly. Plus more F-35s, new drones. signaling a long-term commitment to maintaining military superiority.
Meanwhile, inside Iran, beyond naming successors, well, Khamenei was reportedly in a bunker, which is just extraordinary.
A chilling sign, yeah.
Internet blackout had a massive impact.
Right.
Not just communication.
Profoundly. Leaving the public in the dark, creating this uneven picture of the war. It's information control, making it hard for citizens to know what's happening or for us to verify things.
A tool for control, but isolating people in a crisis.
Precisely. And the human impact. Those clogged roads out of Tehran, families fleeing with their tiny fuel ration, it shows widespread fear, a desperate desire to escape.
Just imagine that scene. It speaks volumes about the public mood.
It really does. Managing that, plus the information vacuum, huge internal challenges for Tehran as they face this direct fight.
So this immediate, fierce escalation, how does it fit the longer-term strategies? You mentioned Netanyahu's risky gamble.
Right. Dan Sabah's point. Netanyahu might be gambling this, shores up his position politically, projecting strength, security, consolidating his base when he's been under pressure.
But the risk?
Huge. If it escalates, if Israel suffers major losses, military, economic, civilian public trust could just evaporate. It's a high-wire act for his political survival. And the irony is, this focus on active defense might actually push Iran closer to the bomb they claim to fear, accelerating the arms race. Each side's solution potentially makes the problem worse.
And Iran's strategy. You mentioned the resistance economy.
Yes, that's crucial to understanding their calculus, born from decades of sanctions. The analysis from Al Jazeera Center for Studies highlights this belief. True strength and deterrence don't just come from sanctions removal, but from building this resistance economy.
Meaning self-sufficiency.
Exactly. Boosting domestic production, non-oil exports, reducing vulnerability to outside pressure. It's ideological, backed by Khamenei, a priority for Raisi's government. The goal is to defeat the sanctions by making them irrelevant, not just waiting for them to be lifted.
Making economic pressure less effective as a tool.
Fundamentally, if they're less reliant on oil, less integrating in ways sanctions can bite, those levers lose power. It's a profound strategic shift, challenging the whole Western approach.
And the ripple effects across the region. This direct fight must be shaking things up.
Massively. Lord Foucher warned this could encourage other nations to act unilaterally when feeling threatened, just chipping away at global order.
A dangerous precedent.
And we're already seeing the immediate effect, warnings of a new arms race. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, they're visibly boosting spending on missile defense, a clear sign of heightened instability.
And what about those recent diplomatic efforts, like Saudi-Iran rapprochement?
Jeopardized. Seriously undermined, if not dead in the water for now. That whole process, mediated by China, aimed at lowering tensions, this conflict just blows it up.
And Israel's normalization with Gulf states.
Also stalled. It was already slow after October 7th. Now, for Saudi Arabia, it's effectively shelved. They're prioritizing their role in the Arab world, the need for an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem. That seems further away than ever with this crisis dominating everything.
Okay, so this isn't happening in a vacuum. Global powers are reacting. What's the U.S. position?
Right.
They're involved, right?
Deeply involved, though trying to manage the extent. They've deployed Patriot and HAD systems, naval assets, providing intelligence help to Israel, a strong commitment to defense.
And helping citizens leave.
Yes. The U.S. Embassy started assisted departure flights from Israel, even helping Americans leave Iran via other countries. Shows the concern for civilians caught in the middle.
But there's debate in the U.S. Trump's position seems complex.
Very complex. He's weighing active U.S. military involvement, but sources say he previously blocked an Israeli plan to kill Khamenei. Then he said there were no plans to kill him, at least not for now. And he commented Israeli strikes could be very hard to stop. It's nuanced, maybe contradictory.
A lot to unpack there. And the B-2 bombers moved to the Pacific. A signal.
Possibly. Strategic deployment, maybe a signal of U.S. reach and readiness, even if not directly aimed at the Middle East theater right now. And domestically, yeah, Democrats reportedly at odds over the war, reflecting how tricky this is for U.S. policy.
So how are other key regional players reacting? Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia quickly stated Israel's actions violate sovereignty and international law, and they doubled down. No diplomatic ties with Israel without an independent Palestinian state. Their strategy is clearly about protecting Arab interests, Gulf stability.
What about the UAE? They normalized relations with Israel.
They're playing it differently, an individualistic strategy, sources call it, balancing ties with the U.S. and Israel but avoiding getting dragged directly into the fight, prioritizing their own economic path.
But still involved behind the scenes.
Apparently, quiet coordination with Israel and the U.S. on post-war Gaza scenarios shows a different approach than Saudi Arabia, but they're still committed to Palestinian humanitarian aid. It's pragmatic.
And Turkey.
Erdogan didn't mince words. Condemned Israel's actions as banditry, said Iran's response was legitimate and legal, clearly siding with Iran's right to retaliate in this instance.
What about Iraq? The militias there.
That's a real flashpoint. Harakat al-Nujaba, an Iran-backed militia, threatened to attack U.S. citizens if Khamenei was harmed, underscores the huge risk of proxies widening the conflict, targeting Americans, and apparently 3 drones were shot down, targeting a U.S. base there.
So the threat is real. Yemen, the Houthis.
The Houthi leader praised Iran's effective response, claimed it put Israel in an unprecedented position, highlighting that interconnected network of Iranian allies.
And influential religious figures, Sistani.
Yes, Grand Ayatollah Sistani in Iraq, a hugely respected voice, denounced Israel's campaign, warned targeting Iran's leadership would shatter regional stability, deepen suffering. He urged diplomacy, international pressure for peace, a call for reason.
What about other Gulf states? Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain?
They've generally expressed deep concern about escalation, pushed for prosecuting Israel for crimes against humanity at the UN, and consistently advocate for that independent Palestinian state, a unified GCC concern, mostly.
Internationally, what are the big diplomatic moves? The UN.
The UN Security Council held an emergency session. Iran demanded condemnation of Israel. Secretary General Guterres made a desperate plea: end military action, return to diplomacy, avoid further internationalization. He said diplomacy is the only and best way forward. But
it feels like diplomacy is struggling to keep up.
It really does. The EU called for de-escalation. Iran's foreign minister met European diplomats in Geneva, UK, France, Germany. First face-to-face talks, a fragile attempt, maybe?
But tensions remain high. Germany.
Yeah, Iran summoned Germany's envoy, protesting the German chancellor's support for Israel as unwise and irresponsible, violating international law. Shows the diplomatic friction.
And Russia and China.
They condemned the Israeli attacks. Putin and Xi agreed it can't be solved by force, pushed for political and diplomatic means. Putin even offered to mediate, shows alignment there, critical of Western actions, positioning themselves as potential peacemakers, perhaps with their own agendas.
And countries are evacuating citizens.
Yes. Canada, Japan, China, Indonesia, Oman, all preparing to help their people get out of both Israel and Iran. A clear signal they see a real immediate danger to civilians.
Which brings us back to the human cost. Beyond the politics, the strategy, it's people suffering.
Tragically, yes. That's the constant grim reality. Israeli and Iranian civilians bearing the brunt. Widespread destruction in residential areas, Tehran, Tel Aviv, significant casualties, injuries.
Those scenes, children pulled from rubble in Tehran, families in shelters in Israel, it's just horrifying.
It cuts through everything else. And the internet blackout in Iran adds another layer of suffering, isolating people. Those clogged roads out of Tehran, people fleeing with barely any fuel, the requests for embassy help to leave Israel. It all points to an urgent humanitarian need. Safe passage, aid for people caught in the crossfire.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up, pull these threads together one last time. What we've really seen, what we've unpacked here, it's more than just another escalation. It feels like a fundamental change.
A shift from shadow wars to direct open conflict between Israel and Iran.
We've looked at Israel's Operation Rising Lion, its precision, its devastating impact on Iran's nuclear sites, military leadership, the tragic civilian toll.
And then Iran's powerful retaliation, Operation True Promise III, breaching sophisticated defenses, bringing destruction to Israeli cities, causing its own heartbreaking casualties.
And throughout, we've tried to highlight that human cost on both sides, alongside the incredibly complex reactions from the region and the world, especially the U.S.
Which leads us to the crucial question looking forward. If Israel's move was a risky gamble for political and military goals, and Iran's resistance economy aims to blunt sanctions and build deterrence, what does this direct clash actually mean for the Middle East's future?
Right. Will this intensity, this awful human cost, somehow force a path to real diplomacy, maybe through unexpected channels?
Or will it just lock us into a new, even more dangerous era, heightened instability, an accelerating arms race, that prolonged campaign becoming a grim reality with global consequences?
It really leaves you wondering what specific actions, what shifts in thinking could actually de-escalate this.
And who might be the surprising figure or the unexpected event that could finally catalyze genuine lasting change in this incredibly volatile situation? That's the question we're left with.